It's time to start rallying around America's young conservatives and explore what it means to be a young Republican in the 21st century. In a world where it seems like everyone under 30 must be a liberal, these are the stories you haven't heard before from the voices of America's young conservatives. So let's find out what it truly means to be raised right. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Raised Right podcast. I hope you all had a very happy Thanksgiving and are getting ready for Christmas and the New Year. I can't believe this year is already almost over. It seems like it goes by so fast. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm your host, Rae'Lee Klein, and I started this podcast as kind of the byproduct of my own experiences as a young conservative in what seems and really is a very liberal world out there. And I wanted other young conservatives to have a place where they could share their stories and their experiences of what it's like to be Republican and conservative and outwardly spoken about it in an age where it seems like anybody under 30 has to be a liberal, which is not the case at all. So for this episode, I'm very excited to share with you a conversation that I had with my dear friend John Smith of Backyard Politics. He invited me on his show to kind of talk about a big current event breaking here in Arizona that has to do with Kyle Rittenhouse. So, of course, we had the trial, and he was found not guilty on all 5 accounts, and he was looking at going to college here at Arizona State University, which is literally in our backyard. And I've had my own run-ins with this university before, and if you want the full story of that, you can listen to the first episode of this podcast called There's Always More to the Story, folks. But recently, Kyle, under announcing that he was looking at enrollment here at ASU, a group of students put together a protest and a public announcement to get him unenrolled. The group for students of socialism, a couple different multicultural organizations all kind of came together to push Kyle out and say that they don't want this mass murder and this killer and this racist on the ASU campus. And this case has been something I've been so passionate about and was really excited to be able to talk about the local connection that we have to it now with my friend John on his show. So I hope you enjoy it. We go into a lot, but I think it's really important to kind of understand and get a look into what conservatives are facing on college campuses and just how much of a backbone the administrations are lacking and how these kids are literally bullying and running the show. So take a listen.
Rae'Lee, I got to tell you, you're quite, you're a confident young lady and I guess brave is the word to go out there and talk about these things because we know that the left doesn't want this type of stuff being talked about, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Let me jump in and just add to that very quickly, John. Rae'Lee, I will tell you that it's my belief, if there were more people like you on campuses when I was in college, we would have been more outspoken because of people like you being outspoken. And we might not be as far into this, this political debacle and this leftist place we are right now. We can't necessarily change the administration of the universities and the funding they're getting from leftist, stakeholders. But when people like you speak out, you help other people speak out. So I think if there were more people like you on campus 25 years ago, we'd probably be in a better place because it would have helped stave off some of the snowballing effect of this of what's going on right now. So just wanted to add that, but don't want to delay getting to the topic.
Oh, thank you.
Well, this information just came out. Excuse me. Phoenix New Times. It's a kind of a liberal left wing rag that's around the valley. But Phoenix New Times is now reporting Kyle Rittenhouse has apparently dropped his Arizona State University classes. There have not been any confirmations or explanations why his classes have been dropped, though. So that's interesting. I don't know if have you heard, Rae'Lee, any of the details about this situation down at ASU? Are you getting any inside information from any of your compies down there?
Not particularly. I know that he was enrolled online that were kind of like introductory classes. I know the university put out a statement saying that he was not attending in person And then he's not enrolled at all, but he was just taking online classes. He was working towards being enrolled in the nursing school, which should have been on the downtown campus, which is where I was as well. And then kind of announced after his trial came to a close that he was looking at attending Arizona State.
Interesting. Okay. All right. This is something that Kelly Townsend, she's one of the senators here in the state of Arizona. She put out, she said, I think that if Michael Crow bends to the pressure to disenroll Kyle Rittenhouse from ASU, that would be a huge mistake on his part with far-reaching repercussions. And then she put 2 hashtags, acquitted, jury of peers. So Michael Crow, he's the current president at ASU. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Did you happen to have any run-ins with this Michael Crow character with your situation?
It's funny because the very first thing that I told my family when this happened was that, of course, Michael Crow is just sitting in his office being silent when all this is going on. And he has a tendency to do that time and time again. I had never, ever heard anything from the president of my own university about my lawsuit when I'm literally suing them. Never heard from the president until it was said and done. And then he wanted to do this pretentious victory lap on an article as if they had somehow won something. And really, I was the one that got a paycheck, not them. But it was very interesting, just saying that I had, some personal issues to work through, that I had made everything up. It was just a really weird way for him to come out of, hiding in his office, essentially, to say something. But of course, we haven't heard anything about this, and I highly doubt that we will.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I don't think so. He seems to be the type of person that hides from bad publicity. He doesn't want to come out and tackle it head on. And like you said, he didn't have much to say until your case, not trial, but your case was over. And ASU did give you a payout. Now, it wasn't obviously a ton of money, and that wasn't what you were looking for anyway.
Right.
You just wanted to bring attention, right, to the cancel culture there.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, it was never about money. It was about calling attention to what not only myself, but thousands of students across the country are dealing with every single day. And by getting national news attention on that and putting reality in the headlines, that was the goal, was to wake people up, especially parents and financial contributors to these universities, to what they're paying and putting their students into. That experience isn't what we were being sold.
Unbelievable. Now, Tyke and I, we're about the same age, right, Tyke? I think you're a little younger than I am.
Yeah, you're older than me.
You're younger. Come on, be nice now. But I went to Penn State University. Tyke went to
the
Ohio State. Yeah, I know. Yes. The Ohio State. And I'm sure, Tyke, when you were on campus, there's liberal factions that were out protesting somewhere on the main lawn or whatever they called it over there at Ohio State. At Penn State, it was called Old Main, and they would have big protests out there for their liberal cause. But most of the time, it wasn't, it was about putting up more lighting so that women feel safer when they're walking to class at night, bringing awareness to rape on campus, that type of stuff, trying to keep abortion legal, the typical left-wing stuff. But now it's gotten so the vitriol is unbelievable. And I want to talk to you about that, Rae'Lee. What is it like? What is the political climate like on the ASU campus, especially if you're a conservative?
Right. Well, John, the truth of the matter is that the people who are discriminated against on college campuses today are not the minorities. Okay. It's not these clubs of the Students for Socialism, Students for Justice and Palestine, multicultural students. They have more safe spaces and more places to find comfort than I probably ever will in my life. There's more opportunity for them to succeed than anyone on that campus. It's the conservatives who are discriminated against. We are targeted. We are silenced. I mean, if you dare to speak up and say that you lean red, you're going to be pretty much, pushed out of every circle that you find yourself in if you own that. And so it's so disappointing for me, to come in and to have gone through that and to look back and say, gosh, the first 2 years of college, I played the game. I didn't say much in class. I wrote the papers to lean liberal so I could get that A+. And it wasn't really until I started to say, okay, this isn't this isn't right. This is crossing legal lines. This is crossing constitutional lines. We got to stand up and push back against something. But the people that make the biggest scene and the biggest scandal have more safe spaces than we ever will. And so being conservative on campus, it's tough. It's very lonely. It's very challenging. But that was why I pushed my lawsuit and why I started my podcast, was to let people know that they're not alone and they don't have to hide because they believe what they believe.
Yeah. And that's interesting. That's interesting to hear that you're saying that these little minority groups, like the Students for Socialism, they have places to go, places to be, kind of kept away from people that disagree with them. I guess what you would call safe places and that type of stuff.
Right.
And there's nothing like that for a young conservative. Nothing.
No. And nor should there be. I mean, there's no safe spaces in the real world. When you meet someone at work you don't like, you get to go crawl in a corner and cry about it to someone else that believes the same as you. Like, that's not life. That's not how the real world works. And so to be creating these spaces for them to push back against anybody that doesn't believe the exact same thing they do is ridiculous to me.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that too, because I've heard, and I just got out of corporate America, thank God. And, you've got the HR department, and that's kind of a safe place, right? You can go to the HR guy or HR gal and sit in their office and cry and, be the little wimp that you are and that type of stuff and complain about everybody. But from my understanding is that these CEOs of these corporate America companies, and Tyke, maybe you have some insight on this because I know you're still in corporate America, but they're starting to build, because these people that demanded this on campus, now these people are starting to work in companies and get into management and upper management spaces, and now they're starting to create these safe spaces or safe places inside their company. That's what I've heard. So it's starting to reflect what college campuses looked like 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. When we joined the workforce, John, we were expected to comply with social and professional norms of the office we joined. If it was suit and tie, we were expected to wear a suit and tie. If it was sir and ma'am, we were expected to say sir and ma'am. We adopted the culture that had been set before us. For some reason, about probably 10 or 15 years after we joined the workforce, the Generation X people started, the millennials, Generation X started, or no, we are Generation X, sorry, I'm misstating that. The millennials started entering the workforce, and corporations, for some reason, felt the need to start to bow to their political, social needs. And, 20 some years ago, when I lived in Pennsylvania and worked there in downtown, we saw this coming, and we said, my God, what's next? They're deciding the dress codes and the culture and what you can and can't do. We weren't afforded that. We were expected to comply with professionalism that was set before us, the standards that were set years and years. In corporate culture today, it is very common to see companies hiring diversity captains, diversity. There's a numerous amount of names for them, but basically they're paying people at the C level, and then those C level people will hire teams of people underneath of them to basically both promote diversity, which in some cases, in some levels, that's fine, but also to create almost this diversity police force within the corporation. So you have people that you're working with day in and day out that their primary role isn't diversity, but they belong to a diversity team. And these people are incented in some sense to keep corporate advised on what's going on in one-off meetings or having to work on projects, etc. So yeah, they're definitely starting to take that college culture that's been prevalent for the past 20 years and apply it to corporate. And it's really, once again, it's just letting the tail wag the dog. And we have multi-billion-dollar corporations that are looking at people with zero experience, zero tolerance, have really, and Rae'Lee, no offense to you or anybody your age, it's just the reality of you do gain wisdom. Hopefully you gain wisdom from life. Not everybody does. But we look at those people and we say, well, you get to set the standard. We're going to bow to your standards. And it's infuriating sometimes. But yeah, and yes, there are corporations definitely looking at building those safe spaces, and even in physical ways, yes, but also in non-physical ways. For instance, making sure that anybody who desires can add their own pronouns to their title, their name in the company address book now. That's a very common thing, and I feel personally, my personal opinion, that type of thing is going to be required very soon.
Oh
You
yeah.
can't just remain so and so at such and such company. You're going to have to be so and so, and I identify as.
Yeah, I pick up my groceries. I don't go. They still do the free pickup at the Fry's down the street from me. So I pick up my groceries. We go into the Fry's app and place our order, and then we pick them up. And there's a young man who dresses like a young lady, and his name tag says us, them, they. That's all the name tag says. Us, them, they. So that's even happening within the Kroger organization already at the ground level. But Rae'Lee, let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're in a class and you're in a journalism class, and you're all talking. It's like a discussion, and the instructor brings up, or the professor, whatever you want to call the person, brings up the Kyle Rittenhouse, the whole situation, the trial, the verdict, etc. You as a conservative, let's say you take that stance and you say, okay, he was clearly in self-defense. He wasn't a mass shooter. He had 30 bullets in his AR, but he only fired 5 of them or 6 of them. He only fired at people that were trying to attack him and hurt him and possibly kill him. How would you be treated by the professor or the instructor in that class? Would it be an open discussion? Or would that person allow the little leftists in the class to just come after you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if I did it now, they'd probably have to listen, because they know if they shut me down, I'm going to sue them. But when I first walked in, I mean, I had teachers like that would talk about current news events. And I mean, if you said anything against what they were preaching, you had if there's 30 people in that class, you had 60 eyeballs on you looking like you had 2 green heads, because you dared to push back against something. And so it boils down, to the individual. When you're in a situation, there's that much pressure. Do you cave to the fear and just sit down and shut up? Or do you speak up and say, look, this is the other side of it? And it's hard. I mean, I'd been doing it since high school, but I didn't do it in a way to argue with the professor or another student. I did it for all the other kids in that classroom who never got the chance to understand both sides and make that decision for themselves. So I consider myself a First Amendment fighter. I don't want everybody to believe the same thing I do. That would be hypocritical of me to approach things that way. But I want everybody to have the right and accurate information from both sides to be able to make the standpoint and the belief that is best for them. And so often you only get shown one side. So of course you're going to believe that. Of course Kyle Rittenhouse is going to be a murderer to you if you think, oh my God, he's got an AR. He walks out on the street and just shoots up people. Well, yeah, I mean, you put it that way, that sounds like a murderer. But you introduce the new facts of what, really happened. Same with Jacob Blake in my incident.
Right.
You get the facts introduced and it changes the total narrative. Is just messed up if you put all the truth in.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you bring up Jacob Blake again, because that what you said was actually facts. It was facts. It was truth. And the little leftists on ASU, man, they came after you and they did everything they could to get you out of there. And unfortunately, they succeeded to an extent, right? They succeeded to an extent. But Jacob Blake was the whole reason that Kenosha happened in the first place, right? They were out there to protest. And the sad thing is the media lied about Jacob Blake and the whole situation. And so when the truth finally came out about Jacob Blake, it was too late. And so the anger was already there. The Kenosha, Wisconsin was already being destroyed. These car lots and these buildings. There were over 40 buildings in Kenosha that are ultimately destroyed, and hundreds of buildings that that got serious damage done to them because of these looters and rioters and these crazy people. And
Right.
so isn't that, I mean, you're a graduate from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. Isn't that what, obviously there's no journalistic integrity anymore. It doesn't seem like
None.
it.
No, it's dead. It is completely dead. And that's why my career path kind of took a different route, was because if somebody didn't watch any of the trial live and only followed the headlines from major news networks about what was going on in the trial, they would have thought it was the most racist thing ever, and they would have thought for sure he would have been indicted on all 5 charges without a doubt, because it's so slanted anymore that the truth, it doesn't exist. And going back to the Kenosha protest, I mean, when you have a building on fire behind you and say that it's a mostly peaceful protest, like, I'm sorry, that's just not the truth. That's not what journalism is supposed to be. So no wonder people had to start going out and defending their towns and their cities. And for a 17-year-old boy to have to go out and protect businesses and people when grown men shut up their windows and hid in houses. I mean,
Right.
America needs so much help right now.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
journalists.
That is so well stated. That's exactly the situation we find ourselves in. For years, we've been tamped down so badly that we almost have to look to your generation to say, you have to rise up and you have to really defend us and come to our rescue, because you're right. There should have been grown men. Number one, there should have been law enforcement on the streets tamping that down. 2, there
Right.
should have been grown men out there doing the right thing. And it falls to a 17-year-old kid. And now he's being completely and totally unjustly just railed on for this, and his life. They're trying to destroy his life. And I'll tell you something you said through the exchange there with John. Can't remember, just pointing out the lawsuit. It was Sam. What's the kid's name that sued CNN? Salmon. Oh gosh, I can't remember. He was in a. What was it?
Are you talking about the young man, Matt? That was that sued CNN.
Yeah. It was. I think his last name was Salmon. I can't remember his name.
I think
but
so.
Yeah.
So the defamation lawsuit is $250 million, and Kyle Rittenhouse has filed, I think it's a $400 million lawsuit. If you think back into the 80s and probably even into the mid 90s, this is how liberals gained control of our school systems and partially our culture, how they started to indoctrinate kids. They started on the lawsuits. They started suing for anything. Oh, you paddled my kid in school, you touched my kid. Okay, I'm going to sue you. And now you're no longer allowed to, there's no corporal punishment. Oh, you singled my kid out in math class because they got an F. You embarrassed my kid. I'm going to sue you for embarrassing my kid. This is how they gain control. So I think the foundation that is being set right now with your lawsuit, with Salmon's lawsuit, with Kyle Rittenhouse lawsuits, hopefully they'll go through and be successful. We're not just going to sit down. We're going to use legal means to defend our rights and defend our freedoms. And hopefully that'll start to turn the tide back to, okay, just like you said, we have to take these people seriously. When John and I were in college, colleges were very liberal, but it was very much in the back office. It was very much it wasn't out front. It wasn't being forced. So I was part of residence and dining halls. I was an RA. I was part of the residence and dining hall student government. The training we had to go through, and some of the conferences we went to where decisions were made around the language that we were using and things like that, very liberal. But to John's point, it wasn't out on the public square. It wasn't in Ohio State's Oval or Penn State's Main. And now it is. So I think these lawsuits and people like you standing up, we can start turning this back. And like I said, just to my core point, it was the lawsuits that started all this. That's how they started to gain traction and shut the other side up. We need to use these lawsuits to really get our voice back. Really, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. And really, that's what you did. That's what you did.
Yeah.
You were like, I'm not going to take this lying down. I'm going I'm going to fight back. And that's what you did. And you ultimately won. And so that's a little shining glimmer of hope, right?
I hope
think
so. I hope people, look at that as an example of, it's okay to fight back and say enough's enough. I mean, I definitely won't say that it's easy or that you don't sacrifice things, because, I mean, you do. I lost friends. I lost a job. I lost what I wanted to do with my life. Credit, I hold on to my faith for giving me direction and saying that, nothing happens, that it's not incidental. Like, everything happens for a reason. And so, I mean, it just takes courage and recognizing that you're fighting on the good side. But I mean, even Kyle, his own attorney, went on Fox News and did an interview and, was suggesting that he should change his name and start a new life. Like, I mean, he's 18 years old and is a national sensation. Is that possible? I don't know. I mean, he might have to have plastic surgery because everyone knows the face now. It's not that simple, but it definitely, it rocked his world and it changed his life for sure. So
yeah,
not an easy thing to do.
And, it's crazy because the media lied about Jacob Blake. The media lied about the Jacob Blake, riots. Even when I was in college and the LA riots were going on, back then, they referred to them as riots. They didn't refer to them as protests, or mostly peaceful protests. They called them, riots. Nowadays they call them mostly peaceful protests or whatever. And so after they lied about Jacob Blake and they lied about the mostly peaceful protests, then they lied about Kyle Rittenhouse. Even even Biden lied about him, and so many, people in the media and so many people in Hollywood, everything, they all came out. They came out, lied about him, and then the truth came down, and he was acquitted of all charges because the truth actually still works in the justice system. So then the media lied about the outcome of the trial, right? Saying that it was all white jurors and this, that, the other thing. And so what that did was that caused a man to go ballistic, get in his car and run 45 people over, killing 6 or 7 people, including old people and kids in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And then the media lied about that. And it seems like everything that they do and everything that they lie about just causes this mass chaos, one thing after another. There's a lot of dead people because of their initial lie about Blake in the first place.
Yeah. And that's really their intention, right? They want chaos. They know that the way they push their narrative, the way that they get people to believe what they're saying is to create chaos. And unfortunately, too many Americans aren't willing to peel back the onion one layer and look at the fire in the background and say, wow, that doesn't look like a mostly peaceful protest to me. That looks like a riot. That looks like things are on fire. And so many people, I mean, I hate, oh my gosh, I can't even say, it says The View. The people that host The View have zero credibility, zero ethics. They will say whatever they're fed. They don't even care. And they get very self-righteous about what they're saying. The lies they have spewed before, during, and after the Kyle Rittenhouse case, one, if they actually watched any of the case, they're absolutely liable for defamation, because then they knowingly said the wrong things, or they're just repeating this mantra, and the loathing, the anger, the evilness is just there. It's like oozes out of them, and they don't care. They don't care that their viewers are just taking their word. And I don't understand why anybody takes the word of CNN, The View, MSNBC. Why does anybody watch them? Because I think our culture is lazy. We don't want to peel the onion back more than a layer.
I don't think many people watch them, to be honest with you. To be, their ratings are extremely low, but for whatever reason, the nonsense that they spout makes for good fodder on conservative media. So conservative media plays these idiots, and they actually get more views through conservative media than they do their own program. But Rae'Lee, I want to get back to you real quick. So what's next for you? You've graduated, right? You've got your bachelor's degree.
I did. Yeah, I graduated in May with both my bachelor's, political science and journalism. And now I am working on getting into law school, and we'll start that in August. So,
Oh, great. Any law schools picked out? Are you ready to like name where you're going, or do you want to keep that kind of private?
I'm looking at a few. I honestly haven't made a decision yet. I mean, I kind of put those things in my faith and trust God that I'll go where he needs me. But I do have some, that I'm looking at and we'll apply to. But it's exciting. I mean, I'm happy to be able to be representing people like me who felt like they didn't have a voice or a choice to push back against these, whether it be governments or institutions that just feel they get the right to control their life. And it's not the case when you push in the court of law. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Even Kyle has mentioned maybe going to law school down the road. So, it's funny, right? I mean, when you get impacted like this at such a young age, it's like maybe what they're doing to these young conservatives is going to come back to bite them in the backside when you guys are just killing people in the courtroom. So I'm excited about that.
Well, it's like a bully. I mean, you get pushed around long enough before you just punch back, right? Like you take as much as you can, and then it's just enough, and the gloves drop and you punch back. So I hope that people are starting to wake up and to do that. But.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really thank you. Are you back in Wyoming now?
Nope, I'm still here in Arizona.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. And well, it's the perfect time to be in Arizona. The weather's perfect, right?
It is, yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate you. You're always welcome on the show anytime you want. And anytime that this crazy stuff goes down on ASU or any campus, I'll be reaching out to you.
Yeah, definitely do. I love to talk about it. And it's just interesting to me. I mean, that they make a total enemy out of this kid when he was just doing his constitutional right. I mean, he had no reason not to do he did. And for people to say that it was a racist case when everybody involved was white, there was no race involved at all. And then, the very next day we have a black man acquitted of, these things that he was being charged with because of self-defense. The media, of course, never talked about that. It's just terrible to think, that I was pursuing an education in something that has turned into one of the most lying and propaganda pushing institutions our country has. And so now I'm on the flip side fighting against it.
It's funny. It's one thing you mentioned before I let you go. You mentioned that Kyle was white and that the three people he killed were white, and a lot of people in America, until after the trial was over, because they weren't watching the trial and everything that they had heard as far as propaganda goes on the media, they had no idea that the three men that he killed were white.
Right.
Because in the media portrayed it as a racial issue, as a white supremacist issue. And so they immediately thought that the victims, well, they weren't victims, but the people that he had shot, the attackers, were white.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
Right.
It's insane.
There are still people on social media. All that, like you said, John, all the facts are out. All you have to do is peel the onion one layer back, and you can see all the quotes and the facts from the trial. There are still people on social media saying the two guys he killed and the other one he shot, that it was racially motivated. And there's still people on social media that just won't listen to facts. They don't care. They don't care about facts, and they're still playing it as if this was a race crime and those people were minorities.
And to build off of that, Rae'Lee 14 in the comments, she made a great point too. She said, I see people still claiming to be emotionally affected and traumatized by the unlawful shooting and killing of Jacob Blake. And the man is not dead. He was not killed. And even the media on CNN, like the big talking heads, the popular people that are on all the time, referred to Jacob Blake being dead multiple times, and he's on social media saying, guys, still here. Right?
Yeah, I mean, imagine how he feels. It's like the media is telling, if you just would have died, we would have had a much better story here. Like, gosh darn you for living through this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's sick. And then, with people not listening, the ones that don't pay any attention are these college students that live in their little bubble in the white ivory power and don't pay attention. I mean, and have to say that he can't come here. ASU is a gun-free campus and we don't want murderers. It's like, okay, ASU is a gun-free campus, just like it's a dry campus, just like it's a drug-free campus. They say,
Right.
but I mean, come on. The bad people are still going to find a way to do this. And we have to have our right to be able to defend ourselves against those who won't follow those rules. And then they're making this whole, like, did you guys see that they're doing like an actual protest on campus on Wednesday to protest him?
Right.
That's
Which
sick.
is like, I mean, you also have to imagine that if it's the ASU Socialism Club, they're going to show up to their sign making event hoping that someone else brought all the signs for them. And hope that it'll be protected. But it's ridiculous to me that these people are more worried about who attends their college, especially when ASU's mantra is we pride ourselves in who we include rather than who we exclude. And yet the majority of your population who are conservatives paying to get their degree there feel more excluded than they have ever felt before in their life, especially now.
Unbelievable. And that really all falls back on the president, Michael Crow, right? That all falls back on his responsibility to follow through. Either ASU is a place of, a welcoming every walk of life, or they're not.
Mm-hmm.
It's either a place for second chances. And I heard that mantra from ASU, right? It's a place for second chances, or it's not. And let's, stop BSing people and just be honest about yourself. And that's what I find so irritating about the left is they're just dishonest about who they are and what they believe.
Yeah, they preach tolerance. They preach tolerance while they are absolutely the most intolerant group of people on the face of the earth. Yeah.
Rae'Lee, you're awesome. Sorry. Go ahead.
You're fine. I was just going to say they let the students run it. Like, where's the leadership to step in and say, no, this isn't who ASU is. This isn't what we believe. This isn't what we push. They're letting this group of socialists and multicultural whatever it is push everything and make the rules. And it's got to stop. I mean, it comes from weak men who are creating the hard times that we all have to live through.
That's right.
Now, when you were on campus, was it common to come across like a group of students for justice in Palestine? Did you see a lot of people like walking around for the Students for Socialism, or are these just like whiny, loud wheels? I
don't know where these people come from because I seriously don't think they exist outside of the internet. Like I've never seen them. I've never interacted with them. I was on the Phoenix campus. It was a lot smaller and I always had my nose in a book, but I really don't feel like they should have as much of a say and an impact as they do because it's such a small group.
Yeah, I agree. They're just loud. Like you said, they're loud and for whatever reason, Michael Crow, he gives into these kooks because he's one of the kooks, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
He's just as kooky as they are. And unfortunately, it's sad.
Yeah, it is. I think for Kyle, though, there might be a silver lining because when I found out he was coming to ASU, I was like, no, run the other way. Don't do it. So maybe it works out in his favor, but gosh, I wish we didn't have to live in a world where other people got to choose what we did with our lives.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, man. Well said. Well said. Well, you're awesome. As always, I really appreciate you. And I wish all the best in the world for you. You'll have to let me know when you decide which college you want to go to for law school. And
the Ohio State University has an amazing law school. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, they do. And I actually was considering going there for my undergrad. Maybe I should have, but
I don't know. I think all colleges are pretty screwed up right now, but
yeah, you're not wrong.
Wow. Well, just you're an awesome voice out there, and you're an inspiration to a lot of people. So keep doing what you're doing. Don't be afraid to fight. And like I said, anytime if there's a topic that's hot right now as far as college goes, I would love to have you back on. So
perfect. So thank you for inviting me on tonight, and I'm sure there will be more crazy college stories to talk about. So thank you guys for including me.
Of course. Anytime, Rae'Lee. Take care. Have a great evening, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good night.
All right. You too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye.
If you're a conservative ready to stand firm in their beliefs and fight for freedom, you're not going to want to miss a single episode of the Raised Right podcast. You can subscribe on any of your favorite podcast apps so you're up to date on what's going on in the political world. Be sure to like, follow, and share our content on the Instagram page at Raised Right Podcast and Facebook and Twitter at Raised Right Pod. This is what it means to be raised right.